produce the current affairs programs and daily national newscasts, broadcast in 6 languages. To learn more about Omni Scholarships, visit omnitv.ca/scholarships.
Hello and welcome to the COVID-19 Special Edition Rogers Television program. My name is Carol Merton, and today I'm delighted to welcome as a guest Robert Uhrig, who is the Vice President for the Meaford Chamber of Commerce. Welcome, Robert.
Oh, thank you for having me, Carol. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. I have certainly had the pleasure of sending you by email some questions and getting your responses back, which was so helpful. I do appreciate that because there's lots of information that you have about what's happening with the Chamber of Commerce. So I'm wondering, first, if you can just describe your role. You had indicated you're Vice President. So what exactly does a Vice President do for a Chamber of Commerce?
Well, it's really more of a team effort, titles notwithstanding, but really Scott Gooch, who is the current president, and myself, we spend a lot of time crafting initiatives that we take to the board and then try and get information going from there. But it really is much more, particularly as well, I should mention Kim Wares, who is our manager and is an absolute amazing resource that we have at our disposal, who is really responsible for a lot of the actual contact between us and our members. So she's great. So we work closely with her and the board just to make sure that, you know, everything's kind of on course and trying to keep abreast of this constantly changing climate we're in.
Yes, for sure. And we're certainly going to chat about, you know, the impact of COVID-19 on your Chamber of Commerce. So you're physically located right in Meaford then, correct?
Correct. And it's funny because we have to discern between the municipality of Meaford and the town of Meaford because it is a broad reaching area. As you know, it goes right to the Owen Sound border. But yes, the office is right downtown in the town of Meaford. So it's centrally located and quite accessible.
So over the COVID-19 pandemic, have you been in the office or have you been working remotely or have you been doing a bit of both?
Off and on. I mean, like everybody else, we had to pivot to Zoom for many of our board meetings and other things that we've had to do. And again, as we rode those waves, those crests of up and down, we did have some internal meetings and some out. So it was truly and game time decision constantly about, okay, what are we doing this time? I'm sure we all have Zoom fatigue and I'm sure we're all kind of done with it. So we're very happy to be back now in the office and trying to work out of there.
You know, I'm beginning to think that we need to create a t-shirt which has the word pivot in a circle with a red line right through it. So,
yes.
Robert, we need to make that a thing after COVID's all done.
And underneath it'll say, I survived COVID.
I like that even better. There you go. We got a marketing idea. But whenever I chat to people and, they say, we're just so tired of the word pivot. And I get it. I really do. But what I was really fascinated by is what happened to the number of people in the chamber over the COVID-19. One of the questions said, how many businesses and organizations, belong to the chamber and did this change? And it actually went up. So tell us how that happened and maybe give the numbers, because I think that's remarkable.
Yeah, well, thank you. Yes, we're actually rather proud of that because going into COVID, that was around the end of 2019, we had 139 members, and which was still a good number, but we ended up going up to, I think we're currently around 156, 157, which I think was just a testament to kind of what we were trying to bring to the table and support a lot of businesses that really required some advocacy and assistance along the way as they were trying to figure out ways to chart through these waters that we were all trying to manage. So we actually have grown, and I think it continues to do so. So uniquely or strangely, the COVID did actually provide an opportunity for, and I'm sure it's not just Meaford, I'm sure many chambers of commerce, it was an opportunity to kind of stand up, see how you could help support local businesses and really be a voice for them. And there were a number of initiatives that we really did right from the get-go. We kind of jumped all over. If I may, there was a couple like right off the top. We if anybody has driven downtown Meaford in the last couple of years, we have a fair share of restaurants downtown. And there was a bylaw in the books years ago about being able to put patios downtown, but it never really came to fruition for various reasons. And so what we proposed was, here was a perfect opportunity since we were forced to doing outdoor dining. Here would be a great opportunity. The downtown restaurants did take advantage of it, a number of them, and we had this whole one side of Sykes Street that was all patios, and it was great because it provided a different look and a different atmosphere, that outdoor community sense, feel, and as well, when you have people driving through town, it just does help to kind of create a little bit more of a buzz, see people on the street. So that was kind of a positive that came out of that. So we worked with the municipality and with the restaurants. We actually did organize a Zoom meeting to kind of get a feel from the restaurants as a whole, food service in general, what was going to be required, what would they need help with to move on. And that certainly was a big one that was brought to our attention.
As a result of that, do you anticipate that might continue even after COVID is done?
Yeah, we just actually had a meeting. We had our board meeting last week, and we had one of the Meaford staff that was there, and we were talking about it. It was introduced. Interestingly, it was introduced as a pilot project, yes. So it really still has to be brought back to council to really make it officially a go forward. But right now, it appears to be kind of a no-brainer. I say that, but never strange things happen. But the appetite is certainly there for it, so I believe it'll continue. Yes.
One of the things that I've heard as we've moved through COVID is, that there have been plans to keep some of the initiatives that have had to be implemented, and certainly, as you described, the patios, that certainly would be one. Any other things that come to mind about how you've changed or how businesses have adapted through the COVID to be able to survive?
Well, again, from then to now is again that was a very tumultuous time. One of the things Chamber did as well is we were really on point in trying to secure a lot of safety equipment that people could use. So we did provide to businesses. We managed to source through various sponsors and assistants and companies that were very generous, and we did provide various essentials between lotions and markings and masks, etc. So that was available to businesses. They could get through the chamber. So it was that kind of thing that was really an opportunity to be there for the businesses. Another thing that we did that was really that we really were really proud of. We did a town hall with, and again by Zoom we had to, but with Alex Ruff and Bill Walker, our local MP and MPP, and again just to give local businesses an opportunity to talk to them face to face, give them an opportunity to ask a few questions, maybe get a sense of direction about what was going on. We had another one with Dr. Era, obviously the local health officer, which was also that was really well attended, and it was very valuable because through that changing dynamic constantly, it was nice to have that voice that was kind of a reassurance of Grey Bruce, as we know, obviously did not suffer as much as many, but our businesses were affected and our people were affected regardless. So that was a great opportunity, both those kind of online venues, for people to have an opportunity to figure out where we were going and how to deal with what the realities were.
And so the Chamber's role was really to draw people together, to be able to have this information sharing in a way that, of course, that was safe, but you coordinated that information exchange. You've chatted about advocacy and how you did that, but also you provided a channel for information exchange in a safe way for a community. Do you anticipate in the future that you will continue with the kind of online, Zoom platforms to draw groups together?
If necessary. I mean, in a perfect world, we'd obviously prefer it to be in person, and because public forum meetings in town halls tend to be very popular. So yeah, we will definitely, a couple more examples. Not only did we have COVID last year, but we also had our main street downtown Meaford, Syke Street, was being torn up because there were new sewers that were being put in. So the patios were there and traffic couldn't get through the street. So again, it was just another kind of hiccup. And that was offset. It was really, COVID was provided some interesting opportunities, because while people couldn't travel, we actually, so what we do through the Chamber of Commerce, hopefully people know the Meaford Apple that's on the main street. It's a tourist kiosk. And what we've done for the past few years is we actually staff that with summer students, and we use it as a tourist venue. So people coming into town, we can kind of gauge what kind of numbers we get, but we can also supply valuable information about the local community and local area. And we found that the numbers were quite up for visitors to our area, because people couldn't travel abroad. People were more tourists in their own province. So it was very kind of heartening to see people kind of discovering us beyond even maybe what would be the norm. So we're really wondering moving forward this year how that's going to look, whether people will, I mean, as you read in the papers, travel is just right now through the roof. Everybody's dying to go somewhere. So I think that will probably have a little bit more of a return to normalcy, and we might see actually even a drop in numbers of people coming to our area from a driving perspective. But we did have the opportunity to kind of showcase our location and hopefully bring people back to the area. So
yeah, and that's a plus. That's exposure. It's all of a sudden you become a face, not just a dot on a map, because people have been there and seen it. And who knows what will happen in the future, having had that opportunity for people to see Meaford and surrounding area as well. Yeah. And
the interesting thing, Meaford it's a great four-season place to visit. We're very proud of that. So it kind of has something for everybody. But we've always kind of suffered with this, a little bit of a stigma, is that there was Blue Mountain and Collingwood and Thornbury. And a lot of people didn't know Meaford existed after that. So it was a really great opportunity for us to kind of truly be discovered. And it's truly worked, because we have found, and again, for a variety of reasons, COVID, as you know, had a great impact on the economy. And now housing is obviously a really hot button topic, to the point that the Golden Horseshoe, Meaford, is only 2.5 hours away from the Golden Horseshoe. So it's great accessibility. And now that people do realize that you can go beyond Blue Mountain, to give you an idea, in 2020, there was approximately $25 million in developments that were greenlit for Meaford, which is a reasonable number, sounds like a lot. But when you compare it to 2021, we had over $100 million in development. So 4 times in 1 year, that is the amount of growth that Meaford is anticipating that we are going to be experiencing in the next few years. There's going to be rapid growth in this little community. I think the GTA and Golden Horseshoe is discovered. And, we've got Georgian Bay, we've got the ski hills, we've got, the beautiful surrounding area. So we've been next for a long time, and now it appears to be happening. So
your time is coming.
And again, it's a good thing, and it's an interesting thing, because there's obviously concern about what that's going to look like. Development is good, growth is good, but it's got to be done in a form that is conducive to our small town environment, not changing that too much. And there are many groups in town who have expressed that obvious concern. So the chamber, one of our roles as well, is to try and stay on top of that, try and work with various organizations in town, be a conduit between staff and the municipality and council, just to determine what these developments are going to look like moving forward and how it's going to impact the town.
But it sounds, as a result of the growth to come, the role of the chamber will certainly be even more critical than it is now, as far as advocacy and support. But the opportunities for businesses that are already there, as well as additional businesses, also seems to be there as well with growth. So, but certainly your role at the chamber is pivotal, even in the discussion period about how to grow a community that makes it sustainable and able to manage the growth. Will be certainly a key part, I'm sure, of what you're going to be involved in. I was quite interested to see that you've been doing surveys throughout COVID. And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about your surveys and what did they say to you? What conclusions were you able to draw, or are you still in the process of analyzing them?
We sent one out recently, and we are just in the throes of analyzing that. But it's interesting because in a small community, you're right, surveys are kind of paramount, because as opposed to large urban centers, smaller populations, you can get maybe more of a feel, even on a percentage basis with participation. So the surveys do work, but you always have to take into consideration that the people that are the most vocal tend to normally have an agenda. So there's something that's assigned to that, and you have to be careful.
Yeah.
The nice thing about it is that we're not the only ones. I mean, the municipality does them, the many organizations do. So we all kind of work together to try and share this data to figure out the advantages, disadvantages of what we can move, how the people feel, etc. The one we sent out most recently was truly about business coming out of COVID. What's that going to look like? What's that going to impact? And it is going to have a massive impact. And when I talked about the growth of Meaford as a whole, again, positive versus negative, because businesses are definitely impacted by that. Because and again, Meaford's no different than anybody else in Southern Ontario. Housing costs have risen drastically. I mean, it's just exponential. So the problem being is that we're finding a lot of local businesses are finding difficulties finding talent, just because they cannot afford to live here. They can't. Meaford's often been skews older. I think our median age is in the mid 50s, so it skews a little older. So when you're trying to get those youth workers for restaurants, for camps, for various things, it can be a little bit more challenging. So that's one thing that makes it difficult. The other thing that makes it kind of difficult is that the businesses themselves, as just like housing, the office space or the workspaces are becoming more expensive as well. So that is another thing where it's kind of this tenant owner balancing act, because they want people in there, but they obviously want top dollar. Small community, you can't compare GTA when you've got standard of living, et cetera, and maybe the populace that is your audience that is actually buying. So that's another challenge that we have to do, is trying to be the conduit again between those two bodies to make sure that both parties realize that there is a massive impact on the economy right now. I mean, everybody's painfully aware, but it needs to be talked about. It needs to be discussed, and it needs to be brought to everybody's attention that there are challenges that everybody has to face, and it's only going to benefit everybody moving forward if we work together to help grow the economy and the local economy. So that's a challenge.
Big challenge for sure. Going back to, you called it talent, but you're referencing basically workers who work in the business and who have different skills depending on the business. Where have the workers gone? That's a question that came up in a previous show, that people are asking the question, what's happened? We had people who were available to work, and now we have this worker shortage. Any ideas?
There was a couple of really interesting studies that were done during COVID. It was the end of 21, I believe, that they talked about when they did CERB to actually help augment workers' incomes because they couldn't work. A lot of times in the past when people got EI or various things, it was just kind of a stopgap measure, and people said, okay, I'll just sit on that until I get back to whatever. CERB was really designed to say to people, can you actually get out and maybe now take a course, somehow better your situation, whatever. And it was incredible because they said it was, and again, you have to take all statistics with a grain of salt, but they literally said it was about 45% of people that took CERB worked at some capacity to try and get more education, get more training, do whatever. So one thing is a lot of the people that were in those entry-level jobs have now moved on. There's many cases that are evident, and they cited quite a few, particularly the entertainment and the restaurant industry, because those tend to be those entry-level jobs for people. That those people were, many of those people were actually saying now, I can now be in an office environment. I can be in a skills environment. I can be in a skilled trade. So there were many people that did that, and that took away a lot of that kind of labor that really populated those kinds of businesses. So that was one. That coupled with the fact that a lot of the youth, again, they go away to school, and whether they come back, and during COVID, there was nothing to come back to because a lot of the businesses weren't open. So you kind of had 2 years of a drain of people going away. And now it's our job to try and, again, bring them back, get the businesses open, get them, but again, trying to find them places to live with reasonable rent or housing is now the challenge that's coupling that.
Yes, for sure. So certainly COVID has taught us the absolute importance of entry-level positions and people to fill them to help our communities continue to function. Perhaps they were the unrecognized glue that we needed for sustaining community and businesses and communities. Certainly, we're seeing what's happened now. We don't have them. So it was maybe a lesson that people hadn't realized before, how important these positions are.
Yeah, I think one of the byproducts, again, was that value that was shown. And again, when you saw the minimum wage go up, you saw that some of the frontline people were getting more money. And they just, you're right, they truly, you don't realize what you have until it's not there. And with that kind of level of employment kind of dissipating, that affected a lot of people who took for granted that they'll just always be there. So no, there were huge repercussions, and it's going to be a challenge to get it back.
We're hearing that more and more businesses who can are actually seriously considering purchasing places to be able to house their employees. Have you heard of that, Robert? And is that happening in Meaford?
In a little different direction, you're right. I know that in the area of Grey Bruce, there are definitely businesses that are looking into that. What I find interesting is when I talk about earlier about the new developments that are coming, what is the challenge there is to try and make sure that the entry level there is at a point where people can young families, again, can afford it. Because if you're walking into a community where the homes are starting at $750,000 or $800,000, that's not exactly walking into an affordable environment or attainable. So what's really nice is one of the new developments that I've heard recently is that they're going to be putting about 40% of the market, saying that is available to Meaford area people first. So it gives people who are already in the area but can't get a foot in the door to a chance to maybe, and they're going to be lower priced housing as well. That's been intention they're going to start more around with townhomes around 300,000 and up from there, which is a far cry from a lot of the 5 to 7 that some of those existing buildings are now. So that's going to be an opportunity for some of that. It'll also stop some of the speculating of people that come in, they just want to get a ski property and they'll be only there for a few months of the year and that kind of thing. So we do need to provide an opportunity for those workers to have first crack at those kinds of lodgings.
And certainly, again, lessons from COVID, businesses need to have housing availability to grow. And because if their workers cannot find homes, they don't have people to fill the jobs. And that, that's a different perspective, I think, than perhaps we might have had 2 years ago. So certainly a key learning. the impact on the Ukraine-Russia situation. What can you say about that in relation to chambers of commerce or the impact locally?
Yeah, it's obviously just horrible what is happening, and it's so grossly unfair to the people of Ukraine, and obviously our hearts go out to them. Yeah, I know we wrestle with how we can support the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, which obviously the Meaford is. I've attended a couple of webinars really recently with them, and they are kind of doing great advocacy work towards the government. So what they're doing is they're getting local chambers to try and sign letters of support to various political bodies to support mechanisms that will assist them, whether it be financial or boycotting or whatever we can do to try and help that. So it feels a bit like it's all symbolic because we're obviously not boots on the ground and we can't. But by the same token, symbolism is what counts. I mean, the world has to show a united face against tyranny, or else it's just going to expand and grow. So I think, again, in our role of advocacy, one of our goals in that endeavor is to try and make sure that we at least voice what our community does to support that, and we will continue to do that in any way.
So I know we have just a few minutes left in the program. Over COVID-19, people have been buying and ordering online different products, but now that the local businesses are able to open up and, hopefully some normalcy, what would you say to those who used to shop online?
Yeah, that's all. And again, it's not a new problem, but it was certainly exacerbated by the situation. And I mean, what we just do is we invite people to just compare their own backyard. I mean, we have great shops all through our communities, and when you're doing that, you are also supporting your community. People kind of lose sight that when you are buying online, what you are losing is that you're supporting that local business who, in turn, funnels money back into the community, because so many of our larger businesses are brilliant at supporting local arts and culture and sports and events. So when you take money out of the community by shopping somewhere else, you're actually affecting that. So it's a vicious cycle that needs to be kind of carefully monitored. So that's the messaging we always have. And every community wants to shop local, and that's a grandiose idea. But I think people need to know the impact behind it and why you need to shop local.
Excellent. I can't believe our time has gone so quickly, Robert. I have really appreciated this chance to speak with you and to learn more about the role of chambers of commerce in our communities. You take care, and thank you very much for being here.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you to our viewing audience for joining us today. To learn more about programs and resources available to you and to your family, please take care, stay safe, and stay tuned.
This program is brought to you by NBA League Pass. More dunks, more slams, more to love, live in HD. NBA League Pass, part of the Rogers Super Sports Pack.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.